Hello and welcome to Single Parent Success Stories. Today's guest is Ian Hawkins. He's joining us from Sydney, Australia. He has a passion and purpose for creating unity for himself, his family, his clients, his community, and the world. He's a natural coach and leader who helps people heal from their unresolved and unknown grief by unlocking their grief code. Welcome, Ian. It is a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Irina. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So please share who is Ian, who you are. Share with us.
Well, I'm a man, and a big part of my life has been over the last 15 years is about trying to better myself. So my answer to this question going back then would have been about all these different hats I wear, but ultimately, like who I am is a lot of what I just described in there. I'm someone who's passionate about bringing people together. It's something that as a shy child that still craved conversation and connection. I used to spend a lot of my time sitting there observing people and wondering why they weren't connecting, mainly through my own inability to do exactly that.
Mm-hmm.
And that has led me on this path, firstly, of observing and then having a moment in my life through my own grief of realizing, okay, well, I need to actually do better at this. I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a son, I'm a brother, and family is a big part of my life as well. And so the other thing I would mention would be sport.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a sports fan. I play a lot of sports still at 49. And it's been a big part of how I've learned about unity and bringing people together as well.
Yeah, I think that's where we learn. Like in sports, as we have to play and get in teams and get that tension or relationship, butting heads or
That's right.
working together as a unit, as a team. That's awesome. What makes you happy?
Well, the first thing that came to mind was helping people. And part of me also knows that happiness has to start from within. So how I help people best I know now is to prioritize me. So I meditate, I exercise, and I'm always looking to improve in a holistic way. So physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. So when I'm able to do that, then I feel happier. And then when I'm able to help people in that happy state, then I get an even bigger buzz.
Awesome. I do agree with you. Yes, we all can generate happiness from within. Oftentimes, although in the midst of despair or when it's difficult situation occurs, we're looking for happiness outside of us. We're waiting for someone to come
Yes,
rescue us. But everything comes down to
exactly.
listening to our inner voice.
Yeah,
How do you,
100%. I agree with that, Irina.
yes, how do you help people? How do you help them heal from their unresolved and unknown grief?
We'll do the quick version. So over the last, so my dad passed away in 2005, and it wasn't just the grief of him passing. A lot of it was the unresolved that I had with him specifically. And then the more work I did around trying to improve was realizing actually there's a fair bit there I didn't even know about where I felt disconnected and that I felt that I hadn't had different needs met. And over the journey of healing from all of the pain and overcoming all of the different challenges that came with it, all the different behavior patterns, it just added to, like I said there in the intro, I was a natural coach. I've been coaching sports since I was a teen.
Mhm.
And I found myself doing all the things that I had been learning. I was doing it with people when in my corporate role as a manager, just generally in life. And over that time, I've got better. And so now it's like I will talk to someone and I will get a guide from their body language or how I feel in my body to help me navigate the conversation to exactly what they need to talk about so that we can help them move past it. And through the conversation, they are able to heal. And it still blows me away that sometimes it is that easy. It's just being able to talk about it in a safe place, which allows people to heal, because so often people say to me, I've never told anyone that. And they've been holding on to that, and the pressure and the stress and all of that goes with not talking about different things. Yeah, it's such a relief when they do. They open up and just realize that that was what was holding them back. And actually, why was I not telling anyone? It's like we often make a bigger deal when we worry about judgment and all these different things, but ultimately it's the expression that helps us so much.
Yes. Yeah. And I guess you create rapport with them, that they feel at ease with you and they're able to open up and share what they wouldn't even share with themselves.
Yeah, that's a great point. Absolutely. It's what, if you're looking for any sort of person to help guide you on your journey, and if we look specifically about being a single parent, it's having a place that feels safe, and more than anything else, it's what you described there. It's the rapport, right? When you get the feel of someone, the energy of someone, and you can see that it's a safe place before someone even speaks.
Right. So what kind of advice would you share with single parents? I know we talked about grief, that what is that impact of separation that single parents have?
So interestingly, one of my very first clients was, initially I was going to be helping him with like his golf game, but he was going through it. He was going through a divorce, and we spent most of the time helping him with that. So probably the biggest thing was him taking responsibility for his part of whatever the situation is. So, and then what he can, when I say responsibility, how can I respond to this situation? So whether it's separation or you're having the passing of someone in your life, it's still how we respond. Now, of course, we need space to grieve, and we need space and take our time, and not rush ourselves, because it, like any grief, it is a difficult time in our life. Then when we're ready to take the step, it's like, okay, how can I respond? And if we stay in blame, and if we stay making it about someone else's fault, particularly if it's a separation, then it keeps us stuck for a long time, and it certainly doesn't help our children. So it's about then making a commitment. Well, okay, well, I can change how I respond. I can show up in the most calm and compassionate and loving way, then I'm going to get a far better response out of the people in my life. Now, that's a very simplified version, and there may be some people listening going, yeah, well, that's easy to say, but, and it's like, yeah, I mean, that is the simple version, but we have to start there. We have to start with coming away from blame and taking responsibility.
Yeah, because everything we create in a life with our thoughts. Of course, in the midst of a situation, it's easy to blame others because we don't want to take responsibility for our own actions. We don't want to, oh, how did I made this situation? But in any situation, in any relationship, people come from two different value systems, belief systems, and they sometimes clash. And unknowingly, we make the mistakes, we make the things, and then we suffer in the victim state and blaming others when it's all coming back to us ourselves. And it takes a different amount of time for people to get there.
Absolutely. And it made me think of something else that I help people around grief, is understanding the patterns from a young age. So like you said, you come from these different backgrounds, whether it's culturally or just how it was in your family, and then you like uniting two families. Of course, there's going to be different things that don't necessarily mesh as easily. They're the tough conversations, they're the challenging conversations. But then if you go through a separation, it's like, okay, well, I can't control the circumstances of anything around this that is not in my control.
Mm-hmm.
And it's stop trying to control it and actually look at, okay, well, what were the patterns that I have had in my life? Often we observe them from our parents, or we heard them from our parents, or from peers, or from teachers and other important people. How can I change that story? The parts that you learned from those people that were great, absolutely continue to do those. But the parts that you can recognize that actually that behavior pattern is probably not helpful now going forward in whatever life looks like, then how can I rewrite that story? The language is the software of the mind. So change the language, change the story in your head, and change your mind and your attitude, and watch everything around you change.
Yes, totally agree with you. It's the story that we create, what we tell ourselves when nobody is watching, especially
Yeah.
behind closed doors. Which wolf do we feed in ourselves? Do we feed the wolf that take us down, or the one that's lift us up? And we can be our own cheerleader, our own executioner, and our own judge, and we write our own story. We are the author of our life. And there is a great book by Marisa Peer, and she talks about tell yourself better lies, because we constantly tell ourselves lies, like the limiting beliefs or the things like, oh, I cannot do this. But is it really true? Are you always cannot do this? Or is this in this particular specific situation? And then we generalize and we make this big projection and feed the mind. And the mind is such a servant. He wants to always prove us right. So we'll get the confirmation right in the face. You're not good
I
enough.
love that.
Here you go. Here how you're not
Yeah.
good enough.
Tell yourself better lies. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I was impressed. Like I read this book and it kind of really like ring a bell, and like it's so true. We constantly, going, and especially like we get in a bad mood and we start like this person did this, and we get on that wagon and we like go into the stratosphere,
Yeah.
switch the script like that.
Absolutely.
Do you have any tools like for that, for switching of the script that you use in your practice?
Absolutely. Really basic level is looking at your blueprint. So similar to what I said before, is look at the messages, and the important thing is to write it down, because the power of the written word, it gets all the confusion out of your head. And by getting it clear on what you experienced, what you had role modeled to you, what messages you heard, write them down, then separate them into the messages that have been helpful and the ones that no longer are. And then for the ones that no longer are, how can you change the story? And then write your own story. Right from this is how it will be going forward. And just there's so much power in the written word. And the other one that comes to mind is the tool that I learned very early in my healing journey, and that was letters of forgiveness. And maybe particularly appropriate for your listeners, Irina, particularly if the separation wasn't amicable, and we can hold on to so much pain. And it's like, what's the quote? It's like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. It's like we are able to let go by forgiveness. And so I wrote this letter. I wrote a whole lot of letters. My coach at the time suggested, to all the different people in my life that I'd felt I'd been wronged by. Now, if you think into your heart, it's pretty much everyone, right? Even your partner, even your children. And then I'm writing these really short letters to everyone. Not that I would ever send, but just for me to release them from my mind. Again, the power of the written word. And I'm a page and a half into this letter to my dad, just bawling my eyes out, realizing that, oh, there's actually a bit here that I've been hanging on to. And that process in itself just was so uplifting. I mean, it was a bit confronting at the time, but then once I got going and released it, it's like, wow, I can actually start to let go of that now. And what I've added since then, and I've learned, is a really great exercise, is because you don't want to send it, and because these messages and these letters are completely private, you burn them, and you do a little ceremonial burning activity where you set them on fire in a safe place, of course. The laundry sink's a good one because you've got the water there ready to go if anything goes wrong. And you allow that energy of all your pain to release into the universe, so that you can let go and not have to carry that around. And that, if I think about it, that would probably be the most powerful tool if you're struggling to grasp the pain of the separation and having to do certain things on your own now that you were expecting that you would do as a team.
Yeah. I totally agree with you about, releasing and practicing forgiveness. It's so important. Even on a daily basis, as we have grudges with people, when we have a difficult conversation, instead of
Yeah.
taking it to ourselves when we go to sleep, releasing it. So every morning we can start with a fresh, clean slate, kind of as a practice. So totally agree with
Absolutely.
you on forgiveness. And that ceremony, you kind of remind me of another kind of ceremony. I guess when women lose their kids, they have this balloon that they release the balloon kind of as a form of
Yeah.
release, and kind of
Yes.
similar ceremony to let go of the grief, let go
Yeah.
of those emotions that we're holding on. And sometimes
Yeah.
the emotions are they're eroding us from the inside. All emotions are great, especially the negative ones, but they are meant for us to be triggering, to
Yeah.
recognize like what's not working, and then get alert, get on it and switch it. But what happens is we get hang up on it.
Yeah. It's amazing. Such simple ceremonies like letting go of a balloon or burning something is so powerful, but it's the intent that we put behind it and the energy that we put behind it and the intention to let go of that, and then having something symbolic there to help us. Yeah, it is so powerful. And I love how you describe that around the emotions. Absolutely. They are all there to help us and help us navigate. And once we can learn to utilize that skill to say, okay, well, I'm feeling this, how do I process this? What action do I need to take? It's a really powerful step. So yeah, I love how you've shared that, Irina.
Yeah, thank you. What do you think was the smallest thing you've done in your life that had the biggest impact so far?
Oh, the smallest thing. Probably the thing that changed things for me was realizing that I am good at conversation and making a decision that if I talk to people who have more influence, then my progress and influence can change. So it was a conscious decision for me to get out of my comfort zone and have more conversations with, and if I look at it from where I was in corporate. I'm like, I can talk to anyone. Why do I fear talking to the next level manager or someone in a perceived place of stature? So I just said, well, just go and do it. It might be a little bit tricky at times and you won't get it right, but eventually you'll see that people are just people, and I do conversation well. So that's probably, it was a little thing, but it was massively impactful because I probably look back at my corporate career, it a lot changed at that time. And then I guess come back to unity, you can create more if you're happy to open your mouth and then develop the skills to be able to do that. So yeah, ties in nicely.
I think, yeah, I think it's important, like opening the mouth, especially, but in a sense of, for me, it was asking for help. Oftentimes we live with our own things and we afraid to ask for help because we think it's a sign of weakness. We want to do it our own way. I call it. For me, it was what happened last year. I dislocated my knee and I was alone with my kids, and I'm okay now. But the realization, and I never ever in my life called 911 before, so it was the first time.
Yeah.
Thinking they're like, I'm okay, I'm not bleeding, everything is fine. Yeah, I cannot get up, my knee is dislocated, but nobody is like, I am alive. Why should I bother police? They have more important things to do. And then slowly realization came, if I don't open up my mouth and ask for help, nobody is gonna know that I need help, that I am in trouble.
That is a great point, and I think it's a good lesson for everyone. And I think if I look at where my journey into personal growth started, even though I had the intent, I didn't know how, but it wasn't until I started asking people and finding out and asking questions. So yeah, that's two small things. Thank you for adding that as well.
Are there any fun projects you're working on that you like to share?
Yeah, I've got a couple at the moment. The one that stands out for me is that for the longest time in business, I struggled to tell my story. And I was talking to you about this earlier. I was working, one of my clients was a writing teacher and a publisher. And I took her through my process to help her get clear on her story, because she had such a vast and extensive story. She wasn't really sure which part was important for her personal brand and for her business brand. And so after we unpacked that, we talked about what that would look like if we were helping people. She helps with the writing, the structure, the publishing, and I help them get really clear on their story for those people who are in business. And so we're doing a collaboration there to help people tell their stories and get their message out to the world. And for me specifically around grief, that's why I have my podcast as well. And I love sharing the platform with guests who tell their story, because that's where so much healing and letting go and in self-improvement happens, through stories. And the thought of helping people to get their story out there in a way that emotionally connects to their clients, but more importantly that they feel great about. Because I've written a few chapters for a few books where I've like, oh, it feels okay, but I'm not sure I'm 100% clear. Whereas now I know how to do that and to help other people. I'm actually really excited about that.
That's amazing. Yeah, I did 2 books this year too, and it's such an amazing process of self-exploration and
Yeah.
getting thoughts out on paper. And then
Yeah.
sometimes you have first when we just start, we think, oh, we have nothing to talk about. But then as you start peeling off the onion, we have so many years of experience of life. It's not just when we go to college and get a degree and we have a paper to prove it, but it's our life experiences that also count for something. And sometimes they're not documented. So our books can serve as that kind of recognition that, you know, in
Yeah.
instead of a
Yeah.
college degree, now you have a book that has the
Yeah.
stories, and stories is how we relate to each other. I think we can connect better, we relate better to people, as we can find points of similarities and get that point across. So awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would argue that life experiences, meaningful life experiences, are more important than degrees. I have a degree, and it's like anything. Like, you only take a small percentage of what you learnt there forward into whatever it is you do, whatever job you go into. You learn so much of it through experience and on the job. So being able to share those experiences in a story, and particularly demonstrating, well, I imagine this is what you found when you were going through it, how you overcame those experiences, are just such a powerful way of helping other people to go on the journey as well.
Yes, yeah. And it changes you in a way once you read your own story.
It absolutely does. I think you find a compassion and you're a bit gentler with yourself. So, I mean, if you look at, again, through what we're talking about around reclaiming your life, and particularly after separation, starting to document some of the journey and seeing the challenges and seeing how strong you've become. If the thought of writing your own story scares you, then you can start with a personal journal and just keeping records from the day to day, keeping records of memories, keeping records of what has worked and what hasn't. Then you're already starting to tell your story, but you're doing it in a more gentler way that allows you to process. And so if anyone's at that point, they're like, well, what can I do myself? I'm not ready to reach out. I'm not ready to open up. Then the journaling process, that was an absolute life changer for me, because it allowed me to get all of those things out and make sense of them, make sense of my story, so that at some point in the future, I was absolutely ready to reach out and ask for help for the right person.
Yeah, and it's a great tool for self-reflection and getting clearing your mind, having like a
Yes.
brain dump.
Yeah, absolutely. Helps you sleep better too.
Yes. Of everything that's bothering you, just let it all out. Do you have any favorite tools for yourself that keep you energized, keep you going during the day? Do you have any daily habits that you love that you want to share?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Meditation that I discovered nearly 10 years ago now. It's funny. I discovered it through sport, would you believe? And that's probably the only way it would have reached me, right? Because at the time, my idea of meditation was the monk, the monk in a monastery or something like that, or a hippie, or whatever it was. But so I've just played golf. I'm in the club afterwards, and there was some secondhand books for sale. And I just started flicking through them. And now I wasn't even an avid reader at the time. I just started flicking through them, and I started reading this sports book from a coach that I really enjoyed listening to. And then he had this whole chapter from his wife around meditation and the impact. And I'm like, oh, wow. So that now has become as important as eating and drinking and sleeping is the ability for me to come back to balance. And for those that maybe think, oh, meditation is challenging and it's not for me, break it down like this. Don't call it meditation. Sit in silence somewhere, if you can, out in nature where it's a bit quieter. Close your eyes and just breathe. And instead of trying to, in inverted commas, meditate, just allow your thoughts. Don't try and control them. Allow your thoughts, your feelings, the physical sensations, everything just to flow, and don't try and stop them, but actually invite more of them in. And it brings you a presence and a calm and a focus that nothing else that I've learned has been able to do. And the other one that I've discovered through my own need is a process around anger. So once I started on this journey, I realized the main thing I wanted to change is being an angry dad and being an angry husband. And it would come out, I'd be on my best behavior when I was at work or in different settings with friends and extended family. And then all my pent up frustration would come out at home, right? And it's been a long journey of learning all these different things, trying to stay calm. And just recently, 6 months ago, I realized that actually you don't want to get rid of that energy, but you can transmute it into a energy that actually gives you more fuel. It helps you overcome procrastination. The other thing I learned was when you don't process anger, particularly low level anger, like, where we don't want to be getting worried about small things. So we don't, so we bury them, so we suppress them. Now that's fine for one small thing, but over a day and a week, there's a lot of small things. And then we end up, why am I feeling frustrated and irritable? And then what we do is we press it down some more. And when we suppress anger, that's when we get those random moments where we feel a bit sad, we feel a bit anxious, maybe a bit depressed, and we wonder why. Well, it's because you bypassed an important part on the emotional scale, which is anger. So I've created this anger rehab training, which allows you to change that in your body. It allows you to shift where you feel the anger or the sadness or the anxiety or whatever, and shift it into a powerful energy so that it can actually get you moving really quickly. So now, for example, if I get a bit frustrated or I start feeling a bit sad randomly, I'm like, oh, there's some anger that hasn't been processed. I'll close my eyes, I'll go through the process, and I'll feel energy again because I'll feel the shift in my body. So that's one that you asked before about exciting projects. That's one I have launched it a short while ago, but I haven't done a heap of promotion on it. But in the next month or so, I'll be ramping that up. So that is one that I can absolutely recommend because it's been so, again, my own experience. It's been so powerful.
I love it. I think it's incredible. And meditation also was a recent addition for me. And in the beginning, I was like, what are you talking about? Sitting in quiet for 5 minutes? Who has the time? But as I adapted it and I practiced it, I noticed how more responsive I am, how less angry I am, how it just everything comes into balance, and doesn't matter where you are, as long as you begin somewhere, 1 minute, 2 minutes, but something that is digestible and is easy, it improves your life so much, and you know that. And the anger release, I love it. I think it's amazing. For me, what I use, if I get angry, I do something, I used to do play big tennis, and that gets all your energy out, especially when you hit that ball.
Yeah.
It's gonna be out of you, or wrestling or something to, kind of get it out of your system.
And that's a great point because the process relies on action. And particularly for men, is a need to do it through action. But as you point out, that's not just reserved for men, but that's like what we usually see, right? Women are much better at processing emotions and talking with their friends and all those different things. So yes, the process that I teach is learning action from within. So you are going through a process of imagining whatever action you feel like you need to take in your mind's eye, rather than having to go and do it physically. So if you need to scream in your head, you do that. If you need to punch a hole in a wall, then do that. So then you don't have to actually do it in real life, right?
Saves time. That's amazing.
So
Don't
it's
have to go
cheaper.
anywhere.
It's
Just close
cheaper.
your eyes and go on a trip.
Exactly. And I wanted to touch on something you said then about practice, because most people get into meditation and they want to be awesome at it. And then when it doesn't work, the first couple of times they go, oh, this isn't for me. But it's like anything, practice and you'll get better.
Yes, totally agree with you.
Yeah.
When it comes to practice, I gotten myself a voice coach, and that was kind of my result from a breakup, to allow me to open up my voice. But I didn't practice at home. I would just go and do it during the lesson. So I didn't see much progress, but I still kept going at it. Now I don't have a coach, and I practice myself every day for 10 minutes or more. And I now see progress physically
Excellent.
and literally. For learning, I'm also learning French on Duolingo, 10 minutes a day, to kind of keep your mind active. And you also see progress and you don't have to spend, we always think we have to spend so much time. It's actually very little time on a day-to-day basis that we have to spend to see the progress.
Yeah,
It's not the
absolutely.
once in a while 2 hours thing, but it's a micro thing, 5 minutes. So thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
If people, if there is there anything I haven't asked that you would like to share?
I would say that if you're listening to this and you've gone through a separation, and the most important thing to remember is it's not your fault what has unfolded for you. It's a product of something we talked about before, the different moments from your upbringing, culturally, just moments from your formative years when you were maybe still in the womb, stress from the womb that's still playing out now, from when you were 1, 2, 3, 4 years, 5 years of age, when you create a pattern based on something that happened and your young brain did its best to keep you safe. And that pattern just repeats until you create a circuit breaker. So keep reminding yourself, how I have been in these different situations is not my fault. Importantly, though, it is your responsibility for change. So saying that it's not your fault doesn't absolve you from taking that responsibility. And again, if you look at responsibility from that place of how you're going to respond, it's like, okay, this has happened. Yes, this was out of my control. It's not like you're going to take responsibility for other people's stuff, but you're going to take responsibility for where you're at with whatever's unfolded. And then how you respond is going to be the most important thing. So give you that self that space. It's not your fault, but you can change it. And speaking with someone like yourself is going to help that massively.
Yes, you're so right. We can only control our reaction to in events as they unfold. We cannot control the events, but we can control how we react. We have the ability to choose our emotions and our feelings, and totally agree with you. If people would like to connect with you or learn more about you, where would they go?
So my handle on most of my pages, well, pretty much all of them, Ian Hawkins Coaching. So that's Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. I'm more than happy if people are drawn to connect with me, for them to connect with my personal Facebook page as well, which is Ian Hawkins 111, and my website ianhawkinscoaching.com. I can I'll share those links with you, and people can get access to my ebook, which has in there that anger rehab training process that I talked about. So you can read that and you can start applying that yourself to your life and start making those changes to be able to shift your anger into something more beneficial quickly.
Thank you. And we will include all the links in the episode notes. Thank you, Ian, so much for coming, sharing your wisdom on grief perspective, on practicing of emotions. And I love your programs. I'm wishing you success and on that great endeavor and spreading this awareness to people, because sometimes we can't even formulate our feelings or articulate them. We could be feeling them, but it's difficult to put them into words. So I appreciate the work you're doing. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, and thank you, Irina.